Okay, this one is going to be really fun. Okay, Stephen, you were reoccurring on 4 series at the same time in 1 year. You were on JAG, West Wing, ER, Star Trek Enterprise. Which was your favorite?
Well, hard to say, but I'm going to say that year it's got to be West Wing.
Excellent. I heard JAG. From the heart of Hollywood, it's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show with Patrick Labyorteaux.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show. Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Tonight's episode, Stephen Culp.
Patrick Labyorteaux Show. He's the one you gotta know.
Okay, guys, you know him as Rex Van DeCamp from Desperate Housewives, Robert Kennedy from 13 Days, and Speaker Haffley from The West Wing. I know him as the guy at the craft service table on the set of JAG. Please welcome Stephen Culp. Yay!
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm very good. Very good, thanks. Nice to be here.
Same here. No, I'm really glad that you're here. Okay, so for those of you who never watched JAG, we were on JAG together. The show ran for 10 years. Stephen was all throughout the entire series. He did over 40 episodes with the show. Yeah, and it was like you were always there. So that's how we basically know each other. But, when you're on a TV show, like your son's name is Joe, my son's name is Joe. It's like you get to know a person.
Yeah.
Act 1, beginnings. So here we are. We had a great time on the show. We're absolutely going to talk about JAG, but I just want to let people know who we're dealing with here. Let me just look at this. You have over 133 credits on IMDb, and that's the credits for the show. So for like JAG, that's one credit of the 133, but then there's like 40 some episodes of that. Same with West Wing and all these other ones. So we're going to go through all of that. But let's start right at the beginning, okay? So, young Stephen, where were you? Why do you want to become an actor? What makes you want to become an actor?
I think I always wanted to become something. I always say that one of my first memories is watching myself. The TV screen is turned off, and you got the big old TV console, and I'm dancing.
Mirror.
I'm dancing in front of, I see my reflection in the TV screen as it's turned off, and I just want to see myself dancing on television. And I must have been, 3, 4, something like that. But I kind of fell into it in high school, and then in college, it sort of cemented it. But before that, I thought I was going to write. I was playing guitar. I was performing in different little bars and stuff, and working on writing my own songs. And then I kind of got shanghaied into doing this. Somebody in my junior class in high school got an idea that we were going to do an evening of comedy skits, and this was like 1973, so there was no real template for anything like this. As far as like, there was no Saturday Night Live. There was,
Monty Python wasn't around for another 2 or 3 years.
We were just starting to hear about them, but I was kind of influenced by Marty Feldman's Comedy Machine, which was a summer replacement show. But anyway, so we had like Laugh-In and the Smothers Brothers, but there was nothing really. But anyway, I was made head writer because I had this reputation for writing humorous essays in my English classes, and then they'd get me to read them out loud to the class, and the class would crack up. So they made me head writer, and I got together with a bunch of really funny people in my class, some of the funniest people I've ever known. And we came up with this evening, and I wrote some things specifically for very, very funny friends of mine. And there was one who said, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to make a fool of myself. And I thought, well, I can do this part. I know what it is. And so I ended up doing it, and I have to say that I couldn't get to sleep after the first night of our performance, because I would start falling asleep and I would just wake up hearing the sound of the audience just roaring. It was a huge success, just roaring with laughter over the stuff that we were doing on the stage, and things I was doing, and things that happened for the first time between me and my friend who I'm in the scene with, and it was just, kind of that magic evening. And so then I thought when I was in college, I was still thinking I was going to be a writer. Maybe I didn't know what I was going to do, but I sort of fell in with the theater crowd. You're trying to replicate this experience, right? You know, you say, I want to do this again. And then that experience is not easy to replicate. And as oddly enough, the more experienced you get, the less you're going to have that transcendent experience because your level has risen, right? So if you're in a play, your great performance in week 1 is going to be like an average performance in week 4 because you don't stay the same and because things keep rising up and your level rises. So that transcendent experience you're chasing is more elusive.
If you replace acting in that story with a drug, you've described addiction, where you have that flush of, oh my God, this is a great drug, and then you want to replicate it, but your tolerances get higher and higher. How do you transform that to a professional actor in Hollywood?
I went to England my junior year of college, studying English literature, and I was at the University of Exeter in Devon, and there was no real outlet for doing theater that there was at William & Mary, where I was going in the States. And I started to find that I really missed it. And then I would go off to London periodically and see plays. And I'd never actually even seen a professional play before. You know, my first one was Equus. You know, I'd seen some community theater.
For anyone who hasn't seen Equus, isn't there a long, like, nude scene? Yeah.
I wonder if that's the play you want to see your first night alone in a foreign country. I'm not sure.
Right.
But it was something. But I saw a bunch of amazing stuff, and I found I really missed it. So I remember I wrote a letter to my mom and said, you know, what would you think if I pursued this as a career? You know, because I was worried. You know, I thought that's a really crazy thing to do. And she wrote me back this letter that was so supportive and wonderful. And then my father, my parents had been split up since I was about 4. Okay. But my father, who you would think would be very different from my mom, very sort of practical businessman, you know, conservative, also was 100% supportive the entire time. And I realized as I got into the profession that I was really, really lucky, because a lot of people who got into it didn't have that support from their family. So I decided when I went back to William & Mary, a friend of mine who was actually an upperclassman who was like a mentor of mine, and he had gone to Brandeis graduate school in the directing program. And so I applied to Brandeis and I applied to UCSD. And so I got into the grad program and I spent getting an MFA in acting in theater arts. And I thought, well, you know, at least I'll have a degree to fall back on, you know, if this doesn't work out. I got up there and realized that I knew nothing about acting. And I spent the first year and a half thinking I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. And it was a dark time. Along about midway through the second year, the work started to click in. And that was the sort of turning point for me. I just knew that I wanted to do this thing. And one of my teachers, our movement teacher who directed me in several things there, was Cheryl G. McFadden, better known as Gates McFadden, who later became Dr. Crusher on Star Trek The Next Generation. And she was, unlike a lot of the people at Brandeis, she was very connected into the New York theater scene. And we would do these things called the League auditions for all these agents and casting directors. You know, I got a lot of nibbles from casting directors. And so I went back to Massachusetts, and Gates McFadden said, so how'd the leagues go? What happened? And I said, well, I got this and this and this, you know. And she goes, you need to go down to New York tomorrow and start following through on this. And I was like, really? So as soon as I could, I took a bus down and I met with a lot of the agents who'd expressed interest. And they were all very encouraging. And all of them said, oh, well, we've already signed everybody, you know, but you know, good luck. So finally, after a couple weeks of just, you know, rejections, I I finally called the last guy that I had been putting off, a guy named Paul Decker. And Paul's like, "Where have you been? I've been waiting for you to call. What's been the problem?"
Wow.
So he sends me up sort of immediately for an audition for a soap for the casting director. That turns into a callback, and then that turns into a screen test. And I end up doing the screen test, and I don't get the screen test. I don't get the role. But then a month later, the phone rings, and it's Paul. And Another World, which is the soap, has offered me a 3-month contract role that begins in the winter based on my screen test. I got to New York in September, and by January, I had a job and an agent. Now, a couple of years later, I got a job on another soap, One Life to Live, and I was one of 3 actors to play the character of Danny Wollock within a year. And I was the second one. I basically took in all the ammo that I could take into it. And I was like, fancying myself the Montgomery Clift of daytime drama or something. I mean, I just labored over every beat, every intention, everything. And it's something I learned in retrospect. And there was this great director. His name was Peter Miner. He was the best director we had on that show, I thought. And there was one day toward the end of my tenure when I was starting to see the writing on the wall. I knew they weren't going to renew. And I was just complaining in rehearsal because my what I was doing in this scene completely contradicted what I had been doing the week before. And I'm just like, I don't understand this. And Peter, and I remember exactly what he said. He takes me aside. He goes, "Stephen, these scripts will not bear the weight of the work that you're willing to put into them." And it was like, boom. And I began to, instead of laboring over it, I just started memorizing my lines on the subway on my way into work. And in the remaining time I had there, I could see the difference. I was going, okay, now you're getting the hang of it. Now you're getting better.
We'll be back after these messages. Have you ever thought about becoming an actor and making your friends and family jealous? Well, have I got a deal for you. Here at Working Actors School, we offer many different classes so you can become a famous actor like me. And we have a delightful selection of classes, including Adult Weekly. It's every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Here you will learn how to be an actor with other adults. How do we do it? How is it possible? Is it a miracle? Yes, it is. It's a miracle called Zoom. We teach everything online so you can become a famous actor and impress your friends and family. So if you want to be a famous actor and make your friends and family jealous, then you need to sign up at Working Actors School. You can get a hold of us at workingactorschool.com. You can sign up for classes at workingactorschool.com. You can make a reservation for the class online at workingactorschool.com. So come check us out. It's workingactorschool.com. Act 2, Success. Just to set the scene. So now you're a professional actor. I want to go through this so people understand. You work a lot, dude. Like, talk about working actors. Here's a list of just some of the shows that you've done: The Cosby Show, A Man Called Hawk, Murphy Brown, Newhart, L.A. Law, Diagnosis Murder, Touched by an Angel, Baywatch Nights, Beverly Hills 90210, Profiler, Chicago Hope, Ally McBeal, 24, The Practice, ER, The West Wing, and outside of JAG and outside of Desperate Housewives, these are just jobs that you've been in. When you're a working actor like that, you're winning the lottery individually over and over and over again, meaning that, no one's calling you saying, "Hey, that guy who had one line on the Cosby Show, I want to bring him in and hire him for Murphy Brown," or whatever it is. It's like you're going out and you're getting these jobs.
Here's the thing, JAG, leading up, the years leading up to that, because I spent most of the 80s doing theater. And I was in New York working with, like, my second equity show was, I did the first Neil Simon show to ever close out of town. It was a play called Actors and Actresses. But I worked with Neil Simon, Terrence McNally. I was doing, I did Playwrights Horizons, Keith Radine play. I was working with a lot of the best playwrights and directors in New York. But then I moved out to, and I came out to LA, actually. The first time I came out to LA, it was a Moss Hart play called Light Up the Sky that was at the Ahmanson. And it was with Peter Falk and Nancy Marchand. And I came out to LA and kind of fell in love with it. Well, I'll backtrack with a little bit of a story here. This was a really good year for me, 1987. The playwright A.R. Gurney Jr., he had a play in Williamstown called Sweet Sue. They auditioned me for this role in Sweet Sue. But he was a teenager, he was a high school student. I was in my later 20s at that point. And I said, you're too old. So that summer, I get a call from Joey Tillinger on a Sunday night and says, Stephen, can you be here tomorrow? Because they fired the guy who they had cast in Sweet Sue. And this play is with Mary Tyler Moore. The next day, I'm on a train to go to Williamstown to do the premiere of Sweet Sue with Mary Tyler Moore. And then they took it to Broadway, and then they went back to casting a younger guy. But I had that was a wonderful break for me doing that play. But then Joey Tillinger recommended me for a Keith Radine play called Highest Standard of Living that was being done at Playwrights Horizons. The lead, Griffin Dunn, had stepped away to do a movie, I think, with Madonna, and they were scrambling around looking for the lead. I went into audition. I got cast. So I did that play. Then that winter, I got an offer to go out to do Light Up the Sky as the understudy at the Amundsen Theater. And I turned it down the first time because I didn't know if I wanted to be the understudy. The second day of rehearsal, I get a phone call. Steve, can you come in? Because they fired the guy who's doing the young playwright. So now I'm doing the role in the play at the Amundsen. It's a good year so far. That's a great year, yeah. So then I go back to New York. I take a job as an understudy in this play, Coastal Disturbances, which is on Broadway. I go see it the night before I audition for the understudy because I can't make head or tail of the play. And I see just the most wonderful actress, this young woman, Annette Bening. And it's her first play in New York. She gets nominated for a Tony for it because she makes this play. She's like nothing you've ever seen. And I get the job as the understudy. I go in, and the first week I'm there, Tim Daly has given notice, and he's leaving the show. And all of a sudden, I do Annette Bening's last month with her on Broadway. And oh my God. She's so incredible. She's just one of the best actresses I've ever worked with. And so I have a wonderful month. Then she leaves the show, and I decide that I'm going to go make my journey to LA. And while I'm in LA, my New York agent sets me up with an appointment for this miniseries, Gore Vidal's Lincoln, the role of John Hay. I go in and read for it, and I don't think I would have gotten this audition had I been in New York. I don't think the casting people in New York would have seen me, but the casting person in LA saw me, brings me in. I hit it off with her, and she brings me in to read for the director of the next day, Lamont Johnson, who's like one of the great TV movie, many Emmy-winning TV movies of, that certain summer and Wallenberg, and just so many are associated with Lamont Johnson. I meet Lamont, and Lamont's looking at me, he goes, "Wait, I know you. I've seen you. Where have I seen you before?" And he goes through he's like, Coastal Disturbances, that's it. I saw you. I loved you in that. And I'm like, "Are you sure it wasn't Tim Daly? Because I only did it for a month." He goes, No, it was you. And so I end up getting cast in what turns out to be like a major role in this miniseries. So I go back to Richmond, and while I'm working on this miniseries, which is my first big TV job, there's this lovely costume wardrobe assistant that I meet and hit it off with, and we start dating, and that's my wife, Barbara.
That's a good year. That's a good year.
Was that then I really wanted to make a go of it out in LA, and after, I'd come out on spec, I'd get jobs, and then, I'd guest stars, here and there, and then I finally moved out, and Barbara in the meantime has moved out, and we're living together. And I signed with an agent in LA, and then my career comes to an end. I can't get arrested for like 3-5 years. I must be auditioning well because I keep getting auditions, but
Right.
I can't get a job. And I finally, I was doing a lot of small theater for free. And then just against all odds, it was through the theater. I ended up doing, going to the Humana Festival in Louisville and doing the new Tony Kushner play. And then I ended up doing Angels in America up at ACT, and one of the best
Nice.
in San Francisco, and one of the best productions, best directors, best play I've ever experienced in my life, and just kind of came back as a new person and a new actor. And it was a year after that I got the job on JAG. And that was sort of, so JAG.
Okay, so how did that happen? So
the beginning of the
got all these
comeback.
credits, but we can talk about a bunch of different things, but since we're there, what was your story with JAG? How did that come about for you? What was your experience with getting JAG?
Well, it was kind of rolling off my experience doing Angels in America. The director we worked with doing Angels, Mark Wing Davey, if he gives you notes, he's right. They're hard for you to see.
Right.
But you can see that he's right about everybody else. So he must be right about you. And but he got us to a place of what he liked to call this sort of dangerous, spiky spontaneity. But he was also very meticulous. We all did these exercises the first week of rehearsal, so we would all get on the same page. They were called actioning exercises, and they were very specific. Where, say, you take a scene, and you basically, for every line or for every sort of new thought or whatever that you have in the scene, you come up with an active verb for it. And so, meaning that it's got to be something you can do to another person. So you can't. So to apologize is not an action, because you can't apologize another person. You got to figure out another verb that'll make it active, something you're doing to somebody. And then this is the big wrinkle: you can't repeat a verb in a scene.
Oh,
so
wow.
you can't. Yeah. So it seems very technical, but what it does when you start getting the hang of it, it actually just kind of
it activates. It activates your work.
And expands, and all of a sudden, there's all these other possibilities that you may not even have considered. So when I went back to Los Angeles, I started trying to work this into the way I approached the work I was getting. And I did a few jobs on TV where I felt like I was starting to get the hang of it. So I get this audition for JAG.
Yeah, let me get everybody up to speed here. So JAG was a TV show, a military law show on NBC that was a cross between A Few Good Men and
Top Gun,
where like Harm, the lead, was a fighter pilot and a lawyer, and on NBC it was like an action adventure show. They got canceled, and then CBS picked it up. Don Belisario, who created it, kind of revamped it, added John Jackson as the JAG, added myself as the assistant, and then added your character into this broader, more of an ensemble type of show than just like a Magnum PI type of show.
I watched the pilot because I saw, pictures of David. He was just impossible not to notice. I said, well, this guy seems interesting. And then when I was home for the summer, my stepfather was watching it because it was his type of show. So I was familiar with it. So I get this role, and on paper, it reads to me, the role is this guy Webb, who it turns out he's with the CIA, but at first he's just presented as a guy from the State Department. And on paper, I only have one scene to go on, but it looks like he's going to be what I call the asshole in the suit role. Specifically with JAG was really where I really learned a lot, because I'd been doing these roles and I'd been auditioning for them even more, and I was kind of getting a little weary of the roles, or maybe the way that I was approaching the roles. And so I took this technique that I worked on in Angels of America, and I apply it to this JAG scene that I've got. And what happened was that I remember there was like a stage direction that was in parentheses defensive or defensively. And when I tried to fix an action to that, I couldn't come up with one. And I was like, defensive is not an action. What am I doing there? And when I really examined it, I realized, wait a minute, no. He's anything but defensive. He's absolutely, in his mind, absolutely right. And he's very pragmatic about it. And he's got his eye on the bigger picture. And this whole character started to take shape for me just by Xing out that stage direction, to where it was like, I'm not going to be the asshole in the suit. I'm not going to be the easy target for the hero to just roll over. I'm an antagonist, and it's actually my job to be the best antagonist I can be until the script gives me no other option but to give in. So that's the way I started approaching Webb, and it was very meticulous. And the other thing that happened when I was working on the first scene was that I felt that there was a weight and an authority that I felt like I just wasn't getting being Steve Culp.
Okay.
And so I just kind of arbitrarily cast around there was an actor that, I'm not going to say who it was, but he was on a TV show at the time that my wife and I liked, and he had this very propulsive way of speaking and doing speeches that would just, plow forward relentlessly until he got to the point or to the end. And I just started kind of say, what if I did that voice? And I started doing that with Webb, and all of a sudden I'm emphasizing different words. I'm putting stresses in places where I wouldn't normally do it. My rhythm is changing. And all of a sudden it's like, I can't stop doing it. And it's really fun. And I realized, this means something. This is something to pursue. So and it's almost like doing Shakespeare, where technically you're looking at the lines and you're doing your acting work, but you're also just going, how does this line read? Where's the stress? Where's the music of it?
Yeah, there's a whole thing called scansion in the Shakespeare thing where you break down.
Yeah. And so I worked on Webb like that, and I ended up, I did one audition for Don and for some of the producers, and I thought it went okay, but that I was kind of like, it was almost like a final dress rehearsal. I didn't feel like I was quite at home with it yet.
Right.
With this new character that I'm doing. But then I got called back the next day, and then I felt completely at home with it. It just felt totally at home. But then much later, one of Don's assistants told me that even before I came in for the callback, Don had said, I think this is the guy. So I spent the first 2 seasons of JAG really working in this, building up this character of Webb and going into his background and, coming up with a life for him but also paying attention to these rhythmic and speech things that I'd found that were a little theatrical. And for me, Webb was, in a way, pushing the envelope on theatricality in a way that I had never done on camera before. And I really wanted to see how much I could do, because when I got a script, I loved it because there were so many different colors and so many different, it's like if you're a pinball, there's so many different things to light up. Right. He's the good guy, but he's maybe the bad guy.
Then they added the thing with you're like a mama's boy, which I loved.
Yeah, he's made a bit of a mama's boy. He's very hard ass and pragmatic, but sometimes he's a little empathy creeps out. He's deadly serious, but sometimes he's the comic foil. He's the butt of the joke. So how do you fit all these? You come up with a character that can accommodate all this stuff. And I kind of felt like not only will it support a little bit of larger than lifeness, but it kind of demands it. So I tried to, so in a way for me, it was an experiment of seeing how theatrical I could be. And
I think it really plays very well for the character. Yeah. And a thing that happens with Don, which I benefited from, I think you benefited, I think all of his shows benefit from, is like Don's like the, like Sauron, the Eye of Sauron, where it's sort of like if it's focused on you, then you get all of his attention. And for the first season of JAG, there was an issue with the network where he was fighting with the network about how they wanted the show versus how he wanted to do it. And when he finally got to CBS, he kind of got the way that he got the show that he wanted to make, right? There's a back and forth with Don. He'll look at your dailies, he'll see what he likes, and then he'll add a little bit more of that into the next script, which I think is how, in a way, you and the writers and Don were building the character of Webb, because each time he would come back, he would be more intriguing and more layered.
It was like they saw what I was doing, and then not only would they build on that, but they'd almost throw me curves just to see, okay, how is he going to do that? How's he going to do that? And I'd be like, ooh, great. And then I'd throw something back. And so we sort of built up this character, and that's really fortunate. That doesn't happen a lot of the time. But I did find finally though, and it's almost like when you're doing a play and you build up this physical characterization or something, and then you end up like paring away things that you don't need anymore.
Right. Uh-huh.
By the end of my second season, I realized that a lot of the stuff that I'd been doing that was very theatrical, I started getting rid of it. I started getting rid of the voice. I started getting rid of, because it started to seem too strident and studied to me.
Uh-huh.
But whereas in the beginning I felt like I'm far distant from this character. I'm very different. He's, the way he thinks, what he believes, the way he deals with people, very different from me. Then after doing it for a while, I start thinking, oh man, this role is perfect for me. It fits me like a glove. And those things that I was using as crutches and supports, I'm able to throw them away now. And so a lot of that stuff, it became less theatrical, because by season 4, or my third season, I had been able to internalize so much of it.
So let me ask you this. So, okay, there's one great story, and I mean, there's 1,000 great stories on JAG, but you got your nose broke while we were doing the show. What happened, dude? Tell us that story.
Well, it was we were shooting. I guess it was the first episode of season 4, I think. But anyway, it was end of a 2-parter. I think it was like 17 hours or something, and we were racing the sun coming up, and everybody was a little frantic, and I was actually, I think I might even have said it to somebody. I said, somebody's going to get hurt if we don't, because it's getting a little out of control. But I was supposed to walk up to John Jackson, who played the Admiral, and he's supposed to turn around and punch me. And but I guess the director had told him to turn around sooner, but nobody had said anything to me. So I just walked right into it. And I was, boom, down on the ground. And I think I went out for a moment.
John's not a small guy.
John's not a small guy. And I think he just sort of clipped me. But yeah, I had my nose broken. And it was, I just started
and the caring, loving, really responsible executive producer, Donald P. Belisario. What did he send you the next day?
They sent me, the production sent me like a big fruit basket and stuff like that, but it also had a Friday the 13th, like, Jason mask on it. Which was
for
fun.
Later productions to protect the pudding.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, your credits here are so huge, dude. I just want to hit a couple of other things. During this period of time, during JAG, I remember your process for 13 Days. Okay, so 13 Days is this movie where you play Robert Kennedy. Weird connection. I played Teddy Kennedy in another TV movie, so we've played brothers.
Wow.
And you've played Robert Kennedy twice. Okay,
Twice,
so you were Norma Jean in Maryland and in 13 Days. Were those ever connected? Did they like see you in Norma Jean and go, oh, bring him in?
I didn't, I had done, Norma Jean in Maryland was just like basically one scene, with me and Mira Sorvino. And, I did like an inordinate amount of, study and work just for this one scene. But I didn't mention it when I went I spent pretty much a whole summer auditioning for 13 Days.
I remember it was like brutal.
It went on for a long time. And I know they were offering it out to other people. But I think, anyway, I spent a summer auditioning for this, and I didn't mention to the director or the producers that I'd done Norma Jean in Maryland, because sometimes if you've done a role before, it might set them against you a little bit. Yeah. We don't want somebody who's done it before. But then I found out later after I got the role that they knew that I had done it. But then Bobby Kennedy in 13 Days was like the third lead in the movie, with Kevin Costner playing Kenny O'Donnell. JFK's
Bruce Greenwood was your brother, right?
And Bruce Greenwood, just brilliant as JFK, and it's all about the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, and it's 13 days of that. And Bobby's just a wonderful part, but like a lot of parts, I feel like it's sort of the stealth part. I think people would turn it down because they didn't realize what a good part it was. But he's throughout the movie, and he has the sort of climactic scene negotiating with the Russian ambassador. But it's a marvelous role.
Kevin Costner's notorious for his dealing with directors because he's an Academy Award-winning director by himself. How was it to work with Kevin at that point? Because was this before JFK? He'd already done JFK.
He'd done JFK. Yeah. Basically, we would gather the actors together while one scene was being shot, and the actors who were coming together into the next scene, if it was a conference table scene, we would all get together and we'd read and discuss the scene back and forth. So we would all be sort of on the same page when we got onto the set, and we'd have talked about ideas and just gotten things generated. And so we took that idea. We said, well, let's talk about it with Kevin on Monday, because we talked over the weekend. And then we got together with Kevin, and he was already like coming to us with the same idea, basically.
You're working with Bruce Greenwood, who is a extremely talented actor and highly regarded in the business. Yes, he's famous, but he's not Kevin Costner famous, okay? But everyone, if I would die to work with Bruce Greenwood, right? Because he's so great. Then you've got Kevin Costner, who is a full blown out literal movie star. Movie star. You're playing Robert Kennedy. Bruce Greenwood's playing JFK. Kevin Costner's playing Robert McNamara. In that dynamic of characters, you two...
No, Dylan Baker's Robert McNamara.
I'm sorry.
Ken O'Donnell, yeah.
Ken O'Donnell, sorry. In that character situation, the two brothers, the Kennedy brothers, are the most powerful in the scene, okay? But on set, Kevin's the most powerful of all, over the director, over everything. Here's my question. How do you negotiate, A, being the new guy, working with Bruce Greenwood and Kevin Costner, where your job is exactly the same as Kevin Costner's? You're an actor. He's an actor. But he's a huge star. So how do you negotiate being a new guy, working inside the characters where your character is technically more powerful than him, but he's a more powerful presence on the set? What's the negotiation that goes on for you?
Well, what you said about the Kennedy brothers, I mean, the brothers were on that set, and it was kind of uncanny, were a force. I mean, it was, people just loved the brothers. People deferred to the brothers. You know, we're not them. And yet you felt some of that power walking around. We had a week of rehearsals before we started shooting. And basically what it turned out to be was that, you know, the Kevin and Bruce and I and the David Self, the writer, and some of the producers, and Roger, you know, we'd be sitting around a table reading scenes back and forth. And then there was the makeup tests, hair tests and stuff. And then finally at the end of the week, we sat down and read with the cast. But one thing that happened during that week was that you know, the script is written in a very factual way. There's not a lot of like, you bring the character, but the script is facts a lot of the time. And the first place where I just went, oh, that scene, that's Bobby. That's pure Bobby to me, was after we're confronted with the missiles. Mm-hmm. And we go out on the portico, and it's this wonderful scene. I just love it, where the three of us are trying to discussing what we're going to do. And Bobby is so distinctive because he's very like man of action, break it down into bits. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And I thought he's not reflective. You know, you're mm-hmm. breaking the problem down into chunks and trying to figure out what to do with it. And he had a few lines where he's like, you know, let's get a bunch of guys together. And I think it's like, you know, and put them in a room and kick them in the ass till they come up with some solutions. And we're reading the scene, and Kevin wanted to take those lines. And I felt strongly enough about it. And I can see why he did, because they're good lines and he's the star. Yeah. But I, at that point, felt I had been living with this guy, you know, for months now, you know, and after I got cast, there was a month in between casting and shooting where I was just totally immersed. And I didn't feel, it would just be like on any set where I didn't like, you know, I didn't get angry or something, but I advocated for my lines, and I said, and I was probably more articulate than now, I said, why? I said, because this is so quintessentially Bobby, and this is the first real moment where we see that in the movie, and I went on and on and on, and I got, mm-hmm. I kept those lines, and afterwards one of the producers said, really glad you did that. And then the next day, Kevin came in and said, and he had a thing about another scene. He said, you know what, I'm going to give you this. You know what I mean? I'd kind of established myself as...
Well, it sounds like you're basing your argument or basing your advocacy for the character as opposed to the personality of the actor. Yeah. But that still doesn't change the fact, in that moment, what's driving you to push back at Kevin Costner? I mean, that's hard. I think
I really felt that was an important scene for Bobby. That's the argument I went in with, and I didn't really I didn't stop to think, you know, not to advocate for it.
Right.
I just did. So after, you know, I said that, you know, like the day after I managed to retain my line. Then he showed me this other scene that said, you know, I think in this scene we're going to have you saying this and this and this. He was like giving me more stuff. And then I shot all my huge solo scenes the first week, and my scene with the Russian ambassador at the end, and Kevin leads me in, mm-hmm. and sort of he's just there to kind of support me and back me up. And Kevin and I never really, you know, there was always a distance. You know, he was like Kevin Costner and I was this guy, and there wasn't like easy conversational rapport between us all the time. But he goes, you know, I really am glad you're doing this role, before I went in to see the ambassador.
I
Yeah,
think there's
yeah.
there's a lot at play there. As a smart producer or star of a show, he wants you to walk in knowing that you've got the
Yeah,
full
yeah.
endorsement so that you can be a badass with that scene. And I think that's really smart instead of undercutting you. So many actors would happily undercut so that, but that's really interesting. We'll be back after these messages. Hey there, I'm Patrick Labyorteaux, and I've been an actor since I was a little kid. So I know what it's like to be a little kid actor. So I have a class here called Youth Weekly, and that meets every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, and it is an awesome class if you are young and want to learn all about acting. We have a great set of kids, and it's taught on Zoom, so you can do it from anywhere. You can do it on your phone, you can do it on your laptop, on an iPad. It's awesome. I've had kids take a class while they were in the car coming back from soccer practice. I swear to you. So if acting is in your blood, come to workingactorschool.com and check out the Youth Weekly class every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. I'll see you there. Act 3, present day. So you're doing JAG, and you have this huge year where you're on JAG, West Wing, ER, Star Trek, which is just, that's so awesome. But when you get, during this period, you get Desperate Housewives, okay? And I remember we went to, I think it was a JAG rap party, and you had just, Desperate Housewives had just come out, and it was like the hugest, like splashiest hit ever. And I came over to you, and I was like so excited for you. And I'm like, well, man, you made a good call on Desperate Housewives. It's a huge hit. You're going to run forever. And you're like, haha, yeah. And you couldn't say anything. But at that time, I think you knew that you had died. And so it was sort of like one of those things that it was like you couldn't say anything about it.
My father went to the rap party with me, and he was also in town when I got, called in to the producers so that they would tell me that I was going to die at the end of the next episode. But I couldn't remember when
I'm sorry, I jumped over all of this information. So Desperate Housewives is this huge hit. You played Rex Van DeCamp, Bree's husband, Bree Van DeCamp? Yeah. Bree's husband. And you were like the quintessential white American, living the dream. And it looked like you were set to be on this huge, big hit. Desperate Housewives, meaning that they have to have a husband to be a housewife. And then you find out that you're the very first person to get killed.
Well, not the first. Like? Christine.
Oh, right. The voiceover lady. Right.
Brenda Strong. But also Christine. I'm forgetting her last name. There was a death of one of the recurring characters over like Thanksgiving. This is what happened with Desperate Housewives. They found the pace, right? And so they were doing season finale things for November sweeps. So
Which
I think
is like middle of the first season, yeah.
Not even the middle. And it was I think it was always in the cards for Rex to die at some point, but I don't think they had thought it was going to be quite that soon.
Okay, so business minute for a second. So you go up for a show like Desperate Housewives. If you're a regular on a TV show, there's a huge process because if they know that you're going to be on the show for a long time, you need to have a contract. Did they sign you to a regular contract for that show?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, this is getting worse. So you're signed on to this brand new show. It turns out to be this big hit. You think you're on the show, and then they bring you in. How did you find out you were going to die?
I had spent the weekend. I went up to Las Vegas for a celebrity poker showdown with a Desperate Housewives table with our friend Andy Newman produced, and I ended up winning the $1 Million Championship, which I could not tell anybody about until the show aired the next fall. And my father was in town, and he went up with me, and it was this great weekend. And then we get back Monday morning, and I'm back not even an hour, and the phone rings. And it's Desperate Housewives wanting to bring me in. Producers want to talk to you this afternoon. And I immediately just assumed. And I just was like, can I just come in now? Just get over it. No. They're not here until the afternoon. So yeah,
So this is
So I
Mark
knew it
Cherry
was-
and the guys that ran the show?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
At that time, especially, somebody died every sweeps. People were always dying on shows. And I think Lost, which came out the same year, I think they had a couple people die during sweeps. And I was looking around and I was thinking, okay, it's either going to be me or this other guy. And they're probably not going to kill him because he's got this particular storyline. And I had been at a party, because Mark Cherry was always going on and on about how, Bree was based on his mother. And so we're at Eva Longoria's birthday or something. And I'm talking with Mark and I said, so Mark, you're always talking about your mom, so what happened to your dad? And he goes, oh, he died of heart disease. And Rex was at that point in the script, he'd already had a heart attack and he was, the pharmacist who hated him was secretly, spiking his medication with poison. And, he was, and literally if I had a watch, I would have gone, how much time do I have? And I was calling at my agents to go, you know what? I think I'm not, they're going to kill me. And my agents are like, are you crazy? People love your character. But yeah, I think, I just think, Mark had it in his head that this is what he wanted to do. And I think they also, as I say, they were running, the story was going faster than they had originally thought it was going to, once they found the pace of the show. But at that point, I felt confident. At another point in my life or my career, earlier, I might have, what have I done wrong? But I was pretty confident that my work on that show was good. And
absolutely.
I didn't have anything to apologize for. And
no, it was a function of the story, and that's what you're there for.
Yeah. When I went into the meeting, I just, coming off the Celebrity Poker Showdown, I just walked in feeling like, I had, 3 kings, they said, well, maybe we'll bring you back for it. As I was leaving, they said, maybe we'll bring you back, for some flashbacks. And I said, oh, great. I'll hit you up for a shitload of money. And I did. I said that. And they ended up bringing me back for flashbacks, and they paid me a respectable amount of money. I didn't even have to ask for it. Sure. When it happened, I just felt like, okay, so I got back home, and Barbara and my dad and I had a toast in the backyard, and I said, "Here's to a fabulous year." And so, I've done this work. I've been on this amazing hit show. You can't ever.
And let's not make it small. Your death was a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal.
Yeah, and if you're going to be one of those,
that was a big plot point.
If you're going to be one of those, why not be the first one? Because that's the one that made a big splash. I mean, the day after it aired, I was on Good Morning America in New York in the morning and Jay Leno in California in the evening. I flew back, I flew back during the day. The time change, I benefited from the time change there. And it was a big deal. And so I said, I've been on this huge hit, and I've made money to provide for my family, and now I'm free again, and I've got this in my back pocket, and so now we get to move on.
We'll be back after these messages. Hey, I'm Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV, and I've been doing this for a long, long time. And I know what it's like if you are in a class with people, and sometimes you just want to have that one-on-one connection with the person that you're working with to go over, I don't know, a particular scene, or maybe you have an audition, or maybe you just want the privacy to try stuff that you don't really know is going to work and not have anyone look at you. Well, I have the perfect solution for you. It's called One-on-One with Patrick Labyorteaux. You can book your time at workingactorschool.com, and it's just me and you for an hour going over whatever it is you want to work on, breaking down the script, talking about character, figuring out your intention, the spine of the scene, everything that goes in to making a dynamite performance. So if you're interested in acting and want that one-on-one personal attention, check out One-on-One with Patrick Labyorteaux. You can find all the information you need at workingactorsschool.com. Act 4, questions. Okay, so here we are. We're now in the questions, and the questions are really simple. These are questions, you know Tina, my wife. So Tina came up with these questions. They're called Tina's Gotta Know. And the first question is called That's Showbiz. What is the most Hollywood moment in your life?
I don't even know if I know what a Hollywood moment is. But okay, just off the top of my head. So I have 2 SAG awards for Desperate Housewives.
That's huge.
For best ensemble in a comedy, not for me individually, but I was, and then you have the award. You're carrying it around for the rest of the night and then you then you bring it in to have the inscription made on it, but you can't put it down, otherwise it's going to disappear. And I'm just such a fan of everybody, and I'm just so agog to be there. And it was. And I was walking through, and there's George Clooney and Grant Heslov over here. And it was, they did Good Night and Good Luck, and Syriana was that year. And I had voted for Good Night and Good Luck for the ensemble for SAG Award movie. And I just said, and I went over to them, and they had approached me. My agent did something about, we're trying to get you in for this George Clooney movie, but you're doing Desperate Housewives. And I went, okay, this was like a while back. But anyway, I walk over to George Clooney and I go, you don't know me. And he goes, hey, we tried to get you for our movie. We loved you. And he knew who I was and shook my hand, and, we had a nice conversation, and he was really friendly. Same thing happened with Michael Moore. I was at the People's Choice Awards. We won the People's Choice Awards for drama, I think, before we started winning for comedy the first year. And I was talking with Michael Moore at the after party. I just went up to him and I was telling him how much I liked Fahrenheit 9/11, and we were talking about it and talking politics, and the election had just happened, and it was 2004, and having this really interesting conversation. And I had introduced myself to him and thinking he doesn't know me. And then at the end of the conversation, he goes, my wife and I just love the show. And we went off, and I was just like, I went to the set the next day just going, Michael Moore's a big fan of our show. I was very excited. So I guess those are Hollywood moments.
That's a great one. No, those are great Hollywood moments. And now That's Showbiz Part 2, the other side of it. What's the most embarrassing Hollywood moment in your life?
Oh, I can't even. Embarrassing Hollywood moment. Okay. So here's my most embarrassing Hollywood moment. So I went to the West Wing wrap party the year that I did it, and I saw John Wells, who
the creator and like amazing producer.
I mistook him for his brother and called him Lou. And he goes, no, it's John. Because I hadn't seen him actually on the set a lot, okay? I'd seen Lou. So, and I told that to Bradley Whitford afterward, and Brad was just like...
No.
Oh, God.
My apologies. John wasn't... who was it that created it? It was... West Wing.
Aaron Sorkin. But it was
Aaron
John Wells.
Sorkin.
Aaron
Sorkin.
John
Wells show.
Wells.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay, number 3, show me the money. What's your biggest missed financial opportunity? In Hollywood, sometimes we run into opportunities that other people won't have or don't get a chance to. Is there any, favorite one that I heard about was when Starbucks offered Rob Lowe shares before they went public. It's like, oh, that'd be nice.
I had post Desperate Housewives. I was trying to be really picky about what I did after that, and I probably shouldn't have been so picky. But there were a couple, because in retrospect, it didn't really make much difference. And in retrospect, I passed on a couple things that maybe I should have taken. But I was trying to be smart. So I
share with us any of those shows that you passed on.
Oh no! Well, there was one. Okay, but see, there was no guarantee I would have gotten this. But I did turn down an opportunity to test for Psych, the show Psych, for the part that Michael, the part of the police that Michael Amundsen.
Amundsen, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Broadway guy that just
he probably would have gotten the role, but I turned down a test because my agent and manager and I talked about it, and we thought I had just stopped doing Rex, and we were looking for something a little less supportive, and I should have done that test, but there's no guarantee I would have gotten it. But right around the same time, I turned down a recurring role on Stargate.
The Atlantis, the one, because you did Stargate Atlantis.
Yeah, no, this is the original Stargate. To go up to do like a staged reading of a new play at ACT for like a couple $100 because that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
I have
those are I hear you. I mean, it's like woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Money in my direction. I don't have a lot of those. Yeah.
Okay, number 4, show and tell. As a teenager, what was your favorite poster in your room, and how did you get it?
I don't know if I had a lot of posters in my room. They were mostly from record albums, So I had whatever was in the record album. So I had like a George Harrison one that you can barely see him. He's just like in total beard and a hat, dimly lit room from All Things Must Pass. And then something I got out of the Who live at Leeds, with the Who at the Marquee Club, with a picture of a young Peter Townsend. I didn't put up a lot of posters.
Okay, Showdown. What to you professionally is the best thing you've ever done and the worst thing you've ever done?
Boy, it really. I just feel so fortunate that I've had so many projects that have taken like kind of everything I've had and more, that I felt really proud of. But I would say Angels in America at ACT is one of them. 13 Days, definitely. I would put Jag up there.
Yeah, sure.
As far as what I learned and how that character developed. I would definitely put that up there. What was the question again?
That's good. The Showdown, so that's the best. What would your worst performance be? The thing that you look at it and go, oh, what the fuck was I thinking about? What was I thinking about?
There's a whole bunch of stuff post Desperate Housewives that I'd like to do over again. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go with the next question here. Showdown. No show. What part did you want but didn't get?
I don't spend a lot of time thinking about those things. I mean, there were plenty of parts, when I was in my fallow years that I was testing for, that I would have loved to have gotten, but that I didn't get. I mean, what I'd really like to, if I had it to do over again, I'd love to be much more of like that sort of British ideal of an actor who's. I'd love to have done a lot more great classical theater. I haven't done enough of that in my career.
Well, you're just getting to the right age to do all the good parts.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. And I think sadly or accurately, we want everything we go up for. I mean,
yes. Yeah.
We're greedy little piggies. We want to do everything. Number 7, favorite show. What movie has most influenced you?
I don't know if it's a particular movie. It was more like, I grew up watching TV.
Sure. So what show then? What's your favorite? What's most influenced you?
Well, the one that rocked my world when I was 9 years old was The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And that completely just, I think that actually got me interested in seeing what's on TV this week. What's, watching, just reading the TV guide, and
right.
That got me interested in this. So but I'm somewhere between, Napoleon Solo and Dick Van Dyke, I think, in my,
When you did NCIS, was David still on the show? David McCallum? Did you get to work with him, meet him?
I did mention The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I think he was kind of tired of hearing it at that point, but because he'd done so many more NCISs at that point than The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Sure.
But he was gracious about it. But I just got the sense that Man from U.N.C.L.E., he couldn't understand what it meant to me. Yeah.
Okay, number 8, show me again. What movie or TV show do you rewatch the most? Like, what's your go-to?
Oh, God, there's so many of them. Hitchcock movies. I would say, Hitchcock movies, The Godfather, parts 1 and 2.
What would be your favorite Hitchcock film? Some Like It Hot is great.
I'm going to say I'm going to say Shadow of a Doubt.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm going to say Notorious. And then below that, it's a jumble of Psycho, North by Northwest, Vertigo, Rear Window. But have you seen Shadow of a Doubt lately?
Not lately. I think I saw it when it came out on DVD. We got it, we added it, and we watched it, and it was part of our Hitchcock period, but I'm not familiar with it too well.
Check it out. It's a beautiful, heartbreaking film, kind of about a primal story about of a loss of innocence. It's really incredible. I feel like it's one of his most sort of deeply felt movies. But really, really, really good. Yeah.
Okay, number 9, finally, show me some love. What's your favorite performance of mine?
Well, we had this one scene. Do you remember this? I think I was telling you about this recently. It's like the second episode I shot, where we're looking at you're pulling a gag on Webb, and you're sitting
with
there
the satellites
staring into the sun. This is how we're spotting for satellites, and you get me doing it with you. And then at the end of it, I realized that you've just been bullshitting me and I'm like blind and stuff. But we did that whole thing. We were literally racing the sun going down, and except for a shot behind us going like this, it's like it starts out long. We're on this ridge in the desert with a truck, and it sort of comes slowly in, and it is one take. And we got one chance at it, and it's a really great, really well played scene. And I remember you telling me that we were out in the desert, on location a couple of days later, and you said, has your agent called you? Because apparently Don saw this on the dailies and thought, these guys, I love these guys. This is great. But it sort of blew him away. So just off the top of my head, that's what I'm going to say.
I love that scene. And I love that because, again, it was like we were putting together a new show kind of, and everyone was working together. And one of the things I love about this business is everyone on the set wants to be there for the most part, like 99% of the time. And it's like, when you've got that going, it's just so exciting. And it's so wonderful when you're starting a show and figuring it out. And you and I was a new character. That's such a big part of it.
Yeah.
So, well, Stephen, thank you so much for coming by. This is amazing. I'm so glad we had a chance to talk.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, it was really great to talk with you. And just thanks again for coming on the show.
Well, thank you. Lovely to see you, even over computer. And
Exactly.
blessings to you and the family.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show. Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Hey, everybody. I'm so glad that you're enjoying the podcast and checking it out. It is an audio podcast wherever you get your audio podcast, and it's a video podcast over on YouTube. My socials are all patrick.labyorteaux, and that is on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok. I'm everywhere. If you want information on the school, you can go to workingactorsschool.com. We have classes going all the time. It's a lot of fun. I suggest you check it out. Hey, we'll see you next time.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show. Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.